Hey there, beautiful soul. Welcome to Cultivate Your Joyful Life, where we believe true fulfillment blooms from within. I'm Emily Liu, your certified life coach, and I'm on a mission to help you create a life you freaking love. In a world where we constantly juggle priorities from career to parenting, relationships to health, it's easy to feel overwhelmed or not enough. But don't worry, in this corner of the universe, I'm here to share practical tips and inspiration to help you access your inner joy right now. So, grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's cultivate your joyful life together. Here we go. Hey there, beautiful soul. Welcome back. So today's episode is going to be a little bit different. I want to share some personal updates, life updates, business updates, just update you in general on what's happening in my life right now. I think a lot of times because I am known as a quote unquote thought expert, or, I am the one that's producing content, a lot of people feel that I have my life figured out. And I'm just here to remind you that I am human, and I want to just talk to you about the various things that I'm experiencing and going through. I talk a lot about my clients and their testimonials and their stories, but I don't really feel like I open up about my personal life. And so here we are. I am actually going to just dish it all out right now. And one of the biggest things that have been happening lately is I'm undergoing a major home renovation. So if you remember back in episode 8 with Megan Myers, I actually shared that I closed on a house. After 3 years of house hunting, trying to find the perfect home, we finally put in an offer and it finally got accepted. And on June 27th, we were handed the keys. And June 28th, we completely started demoing the place. I actually just started posting on Instagram again. And if you want to actually see footage and videos of the before and after, you can check out the latest Instagram reels because I share some videos, and I think it's really cool to see what I'm talking about in this episode today come into fruition. So anyway, we have been undergoing a major renovation for the past month. My husband and our friend Ronan are actually the only two people working on the house. So it's been a lot of heavy lifting. Literally, we took out and demoed almost everything, that like the floors. The only things that remained were most of the walls, and we took out everything else. The old cabinets, the old vanities, the old floors, the old baseboards. And we decided we want to make this home so warm, so inviting. It's the first time in my 37 years of living that I feel like this is the home that I want to make my permanent home. We've moved around so much. Personally, I've lived in over 15 homes. Like every year to 2 years, I would move. And so I just never had a desire to put holes in the wall. Didn't have a desire to paint because everything just felt temporary all the time. But this is the one where I was like, okay, whatever my vision is, I want to freaking create it. I had this Pinterest board, and it's really cool nowadays. Like I think back in the 90s before the internet, you actually had to hire a professional interior designer or designer expert that could help you pair like colors and tiles, because there's so many decisions. Talk about decision fatigue, but every time you make a decision, they ask you another, you have to consider another question, like, do you want smooth or hard edges? Do you want this color or this variation of this shade? And, oh, you like these tiles? What grout color should we choose with that? There's just unlimited questions. And so I think having a designer is super helpful if you can afford it. But I personally just started to look for inspiration on Pinterest and in magazines, and I started to put together a vision board. And I think that's really cool. As I was saying, before the 90s, you probably had to hire an expert, but nowadays there's just so much inspiration everywhere. I was able to just look and see, what do I like? And I figured out my style, my personal interior design style is called Wabi-Sabi / Japandi / transitional. And we're going to talk more about that because there's some life lessons in that. But anyway, all that to say is this is the home that I really wanted to make mine. And so I designed it from floor to ceiling, like each an individual room. I know exactly what it's going to look like. And I was kind of nervous because while I had these ideas of what I wanted, I hadn't actually seen it all together. And then we were putting in, purchase orders of cabinets that I had never seen in real life. Like so much of what we purchased was purchased online because it was just a lot cheaper than the in-stores. And then there's also so much more variety and accessibility. But anyway, I'm just really happy to report after starting to see it build out and everything coming together, it looks freaking elevating. It looks so uplifting. It looks so warm and cozy. And that's the vibe that I was going for. So yay, success. Again, if you can afford a professional, sometimes I think that takes out the stress levels and the sleepless nights and the anxiety, and just kind of having somebody confirm or reassure, like, yeah, that actually matches, or like, that's a really great selection. For me, my husband was primarily my sounding board. And a lot of the times he was like, I don't know. Yeah, sounds good. Sounds great. But luckily, I will say, I think a lot of couples get into fights during renovations. That's what I heard, at least. But my husband and I worked really well together. At first, he wanted to be super involved in like all the decision making for all the different materials and the colors. But at some point when he started working on the house, he got so overwhelmed. He was just like, yeah, don't ask me anymore. Just go for it. Just make the order, make the decision. But luckily, him and I have a similar vision. We have similar aesthetics. And so he was, at the end of the day, like, I really trust your decision making. Go for it. And yeah, we work together as a team really well. So that's a positive. But all this to say is, throughout this process, I listed out 11 lessons that I've learned so far. And I'm just going to go into them with no particular order. The first thing is, because we were working on a tight deadline, initially we got the keys on July 27, and we budgeted to be finished in 3 weeks. We wanted to be done by July 22nd. And that's a lot. Like, the type of renovation we were doing for 2 people, I honestly didn't know if it was like high expectations, low expectations, if it was realistic or unrealistic. I just heard the deadline and I was like, okay, great. But that meant my husband was primarily working on the house. And so then I was left with tending to my own business, my kids, taking care of the house, all the groceries, all the cooking, all the invisible labor basically fell onto me. Like, my husband was MIA for most of the past month. And with that, there's a lot of what could be stress. There could be a lot of, okay, well, he's never around and I have all these other deadlines. And so I'm just going to work like a maniac and burn myself down to the ground, just hustling and trying to create as much as I can and take care of it as much as I can. But what I knew from this house is I wanted this home to represent calm, joy, peace. Like, those were my 3 main values for everything that went into this home. Like, as I kept going back to my vision board, I was like, does this item, does this color represent calm and serenity and peace and joy? Because that's ultimately what this home represents to me. And so I knew that building the home, like really going into the home each day, I needed to enjoy the process from those adjectives, from those values, from those emotions. And so what that meant for me personally is I decided to scale back on my business. Like, at first I had these really lofty goals. I'm going to create a new product. I'm going to create a new offering. I'm going to create a new website. And I just had all of these things that I wanted to achieve coming off of my June Happily Hired formula launch. But seeing what my husband was going through, I realized, okay, this is his chance now to really be in the masculine, to really take hold of his desire to get this done by this deadline and just really work hard. And it's my turn to move into a supportive seat. And I feel like that's really important in relationships and dynamics, is that we support one another in whatever season of life that we're in. So when I was building out Cultivate in my business, he was really in the support role. He was really like, oh, anything you need. Oh, you need me to take care of the kids this weekend? Okay, I got it. Go work on your webinar. Like there was just so much balance between the two of us. And I knew that if I didn't push back my own business deadlines and I didn't push back some of my goals, I would be operating from this hyper masculine and he would be in this hyper masculine, and everything would just feel imbalanced. There would be no calm. There would be no joy. There would be no peace. And so my biggest thing was, okay, for a season, just these next 2 months, we have a deadline right around the corner. We're moving in August 3rd. I'm just going to allow myself this time to take a rest, to take a break from these hyper aggressive goals, from constantly feeling like I need to produce. And how do I set my own expectations and my own deadlines to honor more joy and relaxation? And the minute I made that decision in my head and I said it aloud, that I'm going to allow myself this extended season, these next 2 months of just being in a support role, it alleviated such a big pressure off my shoulders. And I'm so glad that I did that, because my husband and his friend Ronan have been working around the clock trying to get this thing done. I could tell he was really stressed out. I could tell that it was just, he was physically exhausted, mentally fatigued, emotionally drained. And so I'm just really glad that I was able to be there in the support role to help him through whatever he needed, including me painting the baseboards and the caulking and putting putty and painting the walls and putting up tiles for our backsplash. I probably put in a total of 4 days of work, which is really helpful for them to kind of meet their deadline. But I'm sharing that because without me allowing that spaciousness and pushing back my own goals and my own deadlines, I wouldn't have been able to support in that way. So the bottom line of all of this is, whatever you think something is going to give to you at the end of the day or at the end of the journey or when you reach your final destination and goal, how do you start to inject that through the process? Whatever you think that thing represents at the end line, how do you make sure that you're tapping into those feelings, those emotions, those values while you're going through the journey? So again, I'm going to just reiterate this because this is so important. If I want to feel calm, peace, and joy, I'm not going to get that if I'm operating from frenetic energy, from stress, from anger, from overwhelm, from exhaustion, from burnout to get to the final destination. And I personally viewed it as, I don't want to carry this energy into each of the items that we're placing in the house. If I'm like, I have to put up this backsplash and I'm putting so much energy, negative energy into that backsplash, I just visualize myself hanging that and letting that energy linger. I was so joyful and so calm and at so much peace and gratitude as I was hanging each of my tiles, because I was like, oh, I'm so grateful that I even have an opportunity to be able to help put this vision to life. I can actually see and touch this 3D vision and turn it into a reality. Wow, I'm just so grateful for this moment and this opportunity. But the second lesson that I learned is, I talked a little bit earlier about my aesthetic, which is called Wabi-Sabi. If you're not sure what that is, type in Wabi-Sabi interior design into Google. But it's essentially a lot of simplicity, a lot of elegance, and a lot of neutral, natural elements that go into a home. This is really similar to a Japanese philosophy that basically embraces the beauty of imperfection, transience, and simplicity. So from Google, it says Wabi-Sabi encourages people to find beauty in things that are not perfect or permanent, such as cracks in plates, tears in jackets, or life's losses. Wabi-Sabi can help people find strength and beauty in the process of healing and repair. So where this comes in is the overall style of my home is called Wabi-Sabi Transitional. It's kind of like modern, but it has a lot of like Zen, and it has a lot of just neutral colors. Like the cabinets, instead of doing white modern cabinets, they're like a light oak. White oak is considered wabi-sabi in my opinion. You know, even like a coffee table, a lot of round edges versus like sharp edges. It could be sharp edges, but typically like you would think of wabi-sabi as like some kind of wooden table. And maybe that wooden table has imperfections. You know, like when they chop down an actual tree, there might be some imperfections in that tree, and versus like a laminate wood or, you know, manufactured wood, they're probably going to have like the cleanest, smoothest edges, and any gaps, there's not going to be any gaps because it's particle board. But the ultimate note about wabi-sabi is that you're really embracing the imperfections. So anyway, here's a story for you. When I was picking out our countertops, we decided to go with a material called Taj Mahal. It's a natural quartzite from Brazil, and you know, they're literally taking it out of the ground, and each slab is different. No two slabs are the same, and that's the beautiful thing about having something natural, right? It's like this cannot be replicated. This is the only one of its kind that exists. And with that, because it comes from the natural elements, there may be imperfections. And oftentimes there are imperfections with any type of quartzite that you pick out. So anyway, when we picked out the quartzite, I forgot to tell the company what part I wanted of the kitchen island. So our kitchen island, I don't know the exact dimensions, but let's say I wanted it to be 100 inches wide. Oftentimes the slabs themselves maybe come in like 120 inches wide. And so you got to know like what part you want to cut. And typically like you would take a piece of tape and you would just mark out like any imperfections and tell them like, do not use this part, try to cut around that part. I was just so like excited about the Taj Mahal piece that we found, because I'll talk more about this in a little bit, but the piece that I found ended up being like, oh my gosh, the moment I set my eyes on it, I was like, this is the one. This is the pattern I love. I love the movement in it. I love the color of it. I love the lightness of it. And so I just got so excited. I was like, this is the one. I also had Zoe with me at the moment. So I was like, okay, I got to just make a quick decision. And if I were by myself, I would probably have taken more time, taken some pictures, taken some videos, and then like really marked out the imperfections. Well, I talked to my fabricator, the guy who cuts and polishes and installs the countertops. And I was like, hey, Marco, we picked out the Taj Mahal. I didn't get to like measure out what part of the slab I want as the island. Before you start cutting into it, can you please let me know so I can go down to your factory and make sure that I'm able to see what part I want. So this was my control freak coming out. Like I need to make sure that the slab that we get, the kitchen island is going to be the centerpiece. I want it to be perfect. Marco finally gave me his address and he said, my partner Juan is there all day. Go ahead and go over. So the very first thing I did in the morning, like early in the morning, was I headed over to the location he gave me. That, by the way, was an adventure in and of itself. I plugged it into the GPS and I was legit like, I don't think I'm in the right place, because all of these places are like homes and there looks like there's piles of tires in the front yard. I think this is a makeshift tire shop. And then the address he gave me, like the house was missing 2 numbers, but I like made out a 1 and a 5 at the end, which matched what he gave me. But overall, it was like such a sketchy part of town. Like I was so afraid, and I was dressed like really cute. I'm not going to lie. I had on a dress and I had on heels, and I like go out and it's like the most scary, desolate place that I had been in. But finally, Juan comes out and he was like, yeah, you're in the right place. Like, don't mind the tires. Our warehouse is in the back. And it was just like this dirt lot, like in between two shacks. And they had all of these different materials. And finally, I saw my Taj Mahal, but he had already cut it. He was like, oh, we already finished cutting it. Here's the slab that we chose. And then I saw on the slab, there were like these 3 dark spots. And that's kind of like the imperfections that sometimes you get with Taj Mahal. And I was like, oh my gosh, like these spots are really big. And he was like, yeah, sorry, like the kitchen island is so big. I tried to cut around it, but with the width and the length of your countertop, like it's impossible to not get these 3 dark spots on your kitchen island. So, we tried to figure out where the sink was going to go, and the sink cut out. The place that we officially decided the sink would go, to the left of it are these 3 dark black spots. And I was kind of bummed out. I was like, oh, the rest of the counter is so beautiful. And I'm glad like the 4 seats that people will sit at don't have any imperfections. But part of me was like, oh, I really wish that I could have seen like the slab before he cut it or marked it off, because we actually had 2 slabs total. And I was like, surely the other slab doesn't have this. Anyways, long story short is he had already cut it. There's nothing else that I could do at that point. And then on the car ride home, I kept thinking, oh my gosh, like I really wish that I could change this. Is it going to look as nice now? These imperfections are really noticeable. They're so obvious. They're so large. But then I just kept reminding myself of the Wabi-Sabi. Like, how do I embrace these imperfections and allow this to be a part of this process and just really love the imperfections as much as the perfect parts, right? Because I think about it like humans, we all have our own flaws, we all have our own weaknesses, but it doesn't mean that us as a whole should just be dismissed or marked as damaged or marked as unlovable. Anyway, they cut out the sinkhole and then they brought over the Taj Mahal into our kitchen. They installed it, and while I can see those 3 spots, I've actually started to love them. Like I look at them and I actually just start to like massage it or like touch it, because I'm like, oh, this is like the beautiful parts that we got to keep. And I don't know, now they've grown on me. Like we haven't even moved in officially, but every time I go into the house, I look at those spots and I just say like, how grateful I am to like have had those spots, because to me now they're just a representation or a symbolism of embracing imperfection. And I'm just like, oh, I really love this. And quite honestly, the slab is so large. Our kitchen island is really large. And with the rest of the kitchen area, with all of our beautiful cabinets and our lights, and I'm sure once we put in the hardware and we start to put in like decoration and our backsplash, the eyes don't go to the imperfection. Like the imperfection is still there. It's still part of it, but it's not like people are highlighting it or focused or fixated on it. And actually, we ended up getting fireplace counters installed. And one of the slabs that we got for free ended up being like 2 inches too short. And so they had to basically weld together 2 pieces. And you can see the line, but I've had people come through and I've asked them, do you notice anything about this slab? And nobody can spot it. So it's almost like when we know of our own imperfections, we're so aware of it that we put a flashlight on it. We're just like, see, like this is so obvious, like everyone can see it. But I've actually had like 4 people tell me like, no, I don't notice anything. And to me, it's so obvious because I know, but I know like when they look at it, there's just so much movement in the quartzite and the countertop that they're not like looking for the imperfection or they're not seeking it out. And so it's not obvious to them. So anyway, the whole point of Wabi-Sabi is to love the imperfections. And that's something that I am just looking at in all elements of my life. Like instead of having the most perfect whatever, how do I just embrace the mess? How do I embrace this flaw, quote unquote flaw? How do I embrace this weakness? And it's just ever since I started to like express gratitude for those imperfections, like honestly, I don't even feel like my control freak is here anymore. Even my friend Ronan, our contractor, is like, oh, yeah, like when you move in, you're going to notice some imperfections, like some things are not cut exactly square or whatever. And I'm just like, it doesn't bother me. I'm here for all of it. And if it really bothers me, I know we can probably touch it up. Not the quartz site, because that thing is like huge and you cannot move it unless you replace the entire thing. But like all the little things, I'm like, yeah, we'll deal with it if it really bothers us. Like if the paint needs a touch up, we can do that. If this didn't get caulked right, we can caulk this, no problem. Which leads me to number 3, is that everyone on this planet needs to know how to caulk, putty, buff, and paint. I'm just saying this because over the past 37 years of my life, I had never learned this skill. And it prevented me from feeling like I had the power and the control to make mistakes or to change things in the house. Like every time I moved into a place, I was like, oh, if I hang this up on the wall, then I'm going to have to patch this up. Or, oh my gosh, my kids are like damaging the wall. The paint is missing. This paint doesn't look right. But I never took the time to just Google like, okay, how do you fix this? I just left it and let it be or avoided it. And I'm realizing, wow, this is such a valuable life skill. Now I'm just so empowered. Like I feel, oh wow, like I understand what primer and paint is. This project is so doable. And honestly, like learning this basic skill will make you feel like you can do anything in the house. Like it seems very intimidating, but the moment you actually get your hands dirty, you're just like, oh, okay, this isn't so bad. And if I follow XYZ steps, then maybe I could do that other thing too. So anyway, I'm just really excited to learn how to caulk, putty, buff, and paint because I know throughout the years, we're going to have damage to the walls or we're going to have touch-ups that are needed. We're going to want to maybe change the color of something that no longer suits us. And it just doesn't feel so overwhelming or scary or intimidating anymore. That leads me to number 4, which is everything is doable with the right set of tools, measurements, and steps. So home renovating looks really intimidating to somebody who's never touched tools other than a screwdriver before, i.e. me, but I'm realizing that it is just like cooking. This is the analogy that Ronan and I were talking about. Like in order to do anything, you just need the right utensils. You need the right cooking. You need to know the measurements. You need to know your ingredients. And then you just need to prepare everything and then know in what order to do them in, what steps to take. And once you know all of that, it is so empowering. You could literally start to do anything. So if I posted on Instagram, so many people were saying, oh my gosh, like that's so cool. You know how to do that. I've been wanting to do that, but I'm really scared and hiring a contractor is so expensive. My advice to you is to just start with a small project, like a level 1 project, which is probably like painting or doing a backsplash. But like once you learn like how to do a level 1 project, and you just recognize, okay, everything I could possibly want is to learn is on YouTube. I can figure it out step by step. I can learn this skill. It becomes less intimidating. That's something I talk to my job seekers about all the time as well. Like even for something such as job searching, it could feel really overwhelming when you look at like the big picture of, oh, I want to quit my job in this industry and this function, and I want to move to this company and this function that I have zero experience with or zero awareness of. And yet when you break it down into smaller steps and you're just like, okay, I first need to figure out what I want to put in my profile summary. And then I need to figure out how to write my resume. And then I need to figure out how to network or how to apply and follow up. Like everything just becomes a lot more doable, a lot more accessible, a lot more easy. My sixth lesson that I learned through all of this is whenever someone ghosts or cancels or something doesn't go expected, something truly better arises. And so what I mean by this is when we were looking for Taj Mahal countertops, we had two recommendations come through. One of our friends recommended Marco, and then another friend recommended Nick. And initially we went with Nick because we thought his pricing was a little bit better for whatever reason. He just said he could get a really big discount. And so his preferred vendor was a place called Arista. We ended up going there and we took a look at their inventory of Taj Mahal. And to be honest, I was not excited about any of them. Like, I was so excited about Taj Mahal. I had seen them in the showrooms. I had seen them in catalogs. And I was like, okay, like this is the one material that I really, really, really want. We must get it. And then when I saw it, I was just like, oh, none of these like have any movement. The colors look off to me. Like they don't look really great. And there was a people pleaser in me. There was a people pleaser in me that was like, okay, our salesperson just took out all of these slabs and I know they're like really hard to take out. You don't want to move them very often because they're bound to chip or like they're more prone to damage. And yet he's laid out 8 pieces of slabs for me to look at and none of them are very exciting to me. And I was like very vocal about my disappointment with my husband. I was like, I'm not really that excited, but I know we're at a deadline and we need to make an order by Friday. But honestly, I'm not excited about any of them. And I didn't make an impulsive decision. I was like, let me really think about it. I want to like take some pictures and really like sit down with it. And I ended up talking to Nick and was like, by when do you need to make a decision by? And he said, based on your move-in date, we need to make a decision no more than 72 hours from now. And so I was like, okay. 48 hours later, I asked the sales associate again, like, is there any other pieces that we haven't seen in the warehouse? Like, I'm honestly not in love with any of these pieces. Is there any other options? And then he told me like, yeah, actually we have 2 more that I found and dug up. Come take a look at them. When I saw them, they were better, but I still wasn't like, OMG, this is the one. This is like so beautiful. For the amount of money we're spending, I'd be so happy with our selection. I actually thought like if we select any of these with the amount that we're paying and just knowing that we are going to make it pretty permanent in our house, I would be kind of disappointed. Well, luckily, Nick ghosted me because I told him like, I narrowed it down to like these 2 slabs, can you tell me the next steps? And he just never got back in touch. And so knowing our deadline was on Friday, I was like, oh shoot, like let me just be proactive and see what Marco can do for us. And I ended up making a appointment at another tile store called Arizona Tile. And they luckily had only 2 slabs of Taj Mahal. And I already shared with you guys when I went to go look at it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the one. This is so gorgeous. This is so beautiful. I was like, Marco, I found the pieces. I want these pieces. What do I need to do next? And Marco was so on top of it. He was like, oh yeah, like I'll go pick them up tomorrow. And here's like the prices that they gave to me because I get a big discount. And what's amazing is Marco's prices were better than Nick's. I think in the end, we saved over $4,000 just on both the material and his labor. And what's even more beautiful with going with Marco is that I was telling him we have these really wide fireplace countertops. They're about 75 inches wide on both sides. Do we need another slab? And he was like, yeah, you would need another slab. Based on the material that we were going for, it was almost like $3,000 a slab after taxes. And so I was like, shoot, I don't really want to spend another $3,000. And then Marco was like, Oh, like, don't worry. We have a lot of clients who use Taj Mahal, and we have a lot of remnant pieces in our yard. So let me take a look and see what we have, because we might have enough for just your countertops from these other slabs. And he was so nice. He ended up finding the perfect pieces to go on our countertops. They look so good. The only downside is one of the counters is 2 inches short, but he stitched it together with the same material. And unless you're really looking for it, you can't tell. But all that to say is he ended up throwing it in for free. He was like, these are just scraps for us. We're going to get rid of them anyways. You don't need to pay us for this. And the labor is free. Don't worry about it. I'll just include it in your package. And it was so nice. I was freaking out about our fireplace because initially when I designed it, I didn't realize how wide it was and how expensive it was going to be. It would have costed us over $4,000 to buy another slab and then to have it installed. And he literally just threw it in for free. So I was so glad that Nick canceled or ghosted on us, because we just got such a bargain with Marco, and Marco's timeline was a lot faster. He was like, oh, I could get this in on Monday for you guys. Like, we don't need to wait 2 weeks. I'll just get it done, which is why his partner Juan works so quickly on just cutting out the countertop without me being able to see it first. But it all worked out in the end. I just had that reminder, like that feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that Nick actually was unreliable at the last minute, because it opened up an even better door. And I think that happens a lot to us in life when we're so attached to this one outcome, this one thing, this one person, like this is the way it has to be, this is the way it has to look. And then when it doesn't come through, we feel disappointed. But truly, when one door closes, another door just opens right up. All right. Lesson number 6 is just being human and delivering that undesirable news by picking up the phone. You know, I was talking about the guy at Arista, the sales associate, who was so nice, so kind, so on top of it. I felt like if I went with one of his slabs, even though I didn't love it, I would just be operating from people pleasing. Like, I so wanted to give him the business. I so wanted to be like, I really love one of these slabs and I really want to go with one of your slabs. But at the end of the day, my heart just wasn't in it the way that I saw the slabs at Arizona Tile. Like, I just knew that that was the one for me. And so when all was said and done and Marco ended up delivering the slabs to us, I actually picked up the phone and talked to our sales associate and was like, hey, I just want to let you know that I really appreciate your support. I really appreciate all of your time and your patience and your help with trying to select the best slab for us. Unfortunately, I decided to go with another slab that I saw, but I just want to let you know that I'm willing to offer a 5-star review if that's helpful to you, because you've done such a great job and I really wish that you just had a different slab. And our sales associate was like, oh my gosh, thank you for just picking up the phone and telling me this. No worries at all. Like, I want you to be happy with your purchase and selection because it's such a big decision and you don't want to regret it. I'm really happy for you that you found the slab that is right for you, and don't worry about it at all. I'm just really happy and grateful that you picked up the phone to update me, because to be honest, most people don't ever update me and I just never hear from them again. And, you know, that's the thing that I wish I just had Nick do. Like, he saw my text messages, at least respond back like, hey, sorry, I actually can't take on this project anymore. Something big came up. Or I don't have the bandwidth. If I were to work with you, it wouldn't be able to get this done until September 30th. Does that work for you? Like, at least I would have been like, okay, great. Like, I know what to do now. I know how to move forward. I think a lot of people just have a really hard time delivering bad news, quote unquote, or delivering undesirable news because they don't want to be the bad guy. They like, a lot of it comes from self-worth. And I'm saying this from somebody who has worked a lot around this. I used to like not want to deliver bad news to candidates when I was a recruiter, because I felt like, oh no, I'm going to be the bad guy or like the bad girl. And I'm going to like, I don't want to disappoint them. But at the end of the day, people just want to know. People want to know how to proceed forward. People are actually going to be appreciative that you took the time to let them know. So actually, after I told the Arista guy, I even texted Nick, even though he ghosted us. And I was like, hey, Nick, not sure if you're still working on our order, but I just wanted to update you and let you know your service is no longer needed. If we ever need something in the future, I'll see if I need to reach out, but I just want to let you know in case you can move forward without having to worry about our order. We've decided to cancel and go in a different direction. And actually, Nick, like 30 minutes later, was like, okay, thanks for the update. So he was like getting my text messages. He just never responded to any of them except that one. All right. Number 7 is to reset expectations and perspective. So when we first started the renovations, we budgeted, or not we, but our friend and / contractor Ronan budgeted 3 weeks. And he was really disappointed when July 22nd came around, or days leading to July 22nd came around, and he realized, oh my gosh, we are not going to meet this deadline. Like, we are so far behind. There's so much more to do, and we're just not moving quick enough. And I think he was really disappointed because he's a high achiever. He sets his mind to something and usually achieves it. And so this is his first time ever not meeting a deadline on a home renovation project. And when he told us this, I could tell he was like really bummed out and he felt like he was letting us down. And I was like, no, it's totally fine. Like, we're not getting evicted. We don't have an end date on our home that we currently live in. I would rather you guys preserve your physical, your mental, your emotional health and your well-being versus try to meet this arbitrary deadline that was set in place. And, looking at it, there were a lot of reasons for not meeting the deadline. One, he's used to having a right-hand man who moves a lot faster because he does this for a living. Whereas this project, we specifically requested Ronan so that he can take Chris under his wings and train him and teach him. And, Chris was kind of more of like an apprentice, but he by all means was not fully trained and up and ready and rocking, ready to go. So there was that. I think things just took a little bit longer. But 2, the very first day of demoing the house, our tiles were so planted in place, like the mortar underneath was like 5 inches thick or whatever. And it was really, really challenging to take out the tiles. We had to get 2 extra people to help. And even then it took 3 or 4 days longer than what was expected because of just what was underneath that we couldn't see. And then I think the other reason is our home just has a lot of edges. Like, there's so many annoying cuts that need to be made in the baseboards because the way that the home is built, it just has a lot of corners and edges and pillars and all these things that maybe weren't accounted for to the naked eye initially. And, there's just a lot of things. And so I was telling Ronan, to be 1 week out from your expectations for a big renovation project, that's pretty darn good. We're not upholding you to this contract the way that you would probably expect a much more expensive company to do that has a whole team. And, this is just what you contract people out for. And what we really appreciated was that we could just tell he was really trying his hardest. Every single day he was putting in extra hours. He would come really early in the mornings. He would come back late at night. It wasn't for a lack of trying. It would be different if we felt that he wasn't meeting the deadlines due to laziness or incompetence, but that was not the case at all. So I just really wanted to share this lesson because I feel like a lot of times we go into a project, a start of something with an idea of what we want, and to not recalibrate in the middle or to reevaluate at some point during the project and get really real with, okay, where are we? Are we 5 days ahead of schedule? Are we 5 days behind schedule? And how do we recalibrate from there? How do we reevaluate? How do we reset expectations so that we're not suffering because we started with this arbitrary idea and we held this as like the capital T truth of like, this is how it needs to be. Again, very different if we had to move out, but we had a lot of flexibility. So our move-in date was flexible, and we're maybe a total of 9 days behind schedule with me helping out 4 of those days. And, to me, that's pretty darn good. And I don't know if that's just the key to living a happier life is having lower expectations. Not to say like you have lower standards, but like just really removing expectations or being a little bit more loose on expectations, I think just brings a lot of reduced stress and alleviates unnecessary pressure or unnecessary suffering that we put ourselves through. So the question for you is, where do you have specific deadlines that you've made up in your mind? I hear this a lot with job seekers, like, I need to find a job within 1 month. I'm like, oh, that sets my nervous system into high gear because there's like so many things that are beyond your control over 1 month, including how fast the company decides to move forward. What sounds better is, my expectation is that I'm going to apply to 5 jobs a week at minimum. I'm going to attend 2 networking events. I'm going to try to reach out to 1 contact per day. Like those kinds of deadlines and those kinds of goals that are within your control are much more relaxing and peaceful, and to me, more realistic. Okay, the next lesson that I learned is do not sleep on Facebook Marketplace. I found so many great steals on Facebook Marketplace. Anything that you want to search for, like there's a lot of vendors and like discounted warehouses and small businesses that advertise on there. We probably saved over $10,000 in materials just because instead of going to the big boxes like Home Depot, Lowe's, Floor & Decor, we found like smaller mom and pop shops that just had really, really great deals, and they just specialized in this one material at volume. And like an example is we got beautiful floors with the same quality as the ones at Home Depot and Floor & Decor. The ones at Home Depot were like close to $4 a square foot, and we ended up getting ours for $1.50 a square foot. And that times 2,600, that's a lot of money. So I'm just really grateful for that. And going back to Wabi-Sabi, I found aside from a new mattress, a couch, like things that you sit or lay on, I don't mind secondhand or used. I actually think there's some beauty about recycling and kind of taking on somebody else's trash to become your own treasure. And I've been looking at Marketplace first before looking anywhere else. And it's been really beautiful. Like people are selling beautiful vases that are just part of decor. There's a lot of like interior designers, or what do they call them? Stylists, like for showrooms or staging, that are just getting rid of some of their inventory. So we found some really, really great deals on Marketplace. My next advice that I've learned or tip is really finding mentors or people who already know the process. As I was talking and openly sharing about our home renovation, so many people were like, oh my God, I did this and I did that. And have you considered this? And we actually got so many great ideas for our house and recommendations. Like Marco came from a recommendation because we were talking about how we're going to renovate our kitchen. And our friend Alina was like, oh my God, you have to use Marco. He's the best. And we also got to hear like, what did you regret? And what did you wish you could do differently? And we were able to take all of that into account. And I just think it's so powerful to find people to openly share like what you're going through, and then to find people and hear their feedback, ask for their recommendations, ask for their suggestions, ask for their advice, having been on the other side of it now, because we saved a lot of time, we saved a lot of money, we saved a lot of headache, just kind of hearing from other people what they did so that we could avoid those same mistakes. Life lesson number 10 is how to manage stress. And this is something that I just really learned is, my husband came home one day and was just like, I just feel so overwhelmed. I feel so stressed, like almost like I bit off more than I can chew. Like there's just so much to do. There's so many missing pieces. There's so many missing details. There's so many moving parts. And he had on top of this, his own real estate transactions going on. And, I could just really sense his frustration, his overwhelm. And I had a lot of compassion for him in that moment. And I just said, honey, do you think that you did your best today? And he really paused to reflect. And he was like, yeah, I did. And I was like, okay, that's enough. There's so much more that we could be doing or what we think we should do. And I know it's easier said than done. It really is a practice to be embodied in. But just knowing there's always going to be more that you can do. There's always somewhere further along that you can be. But at the end of each day, can you really look at yourself in the mirror and say, wow, I really did my best today. I'm really proud of what I was able to do. I'm really proud of what I was able to achieve. I feel so grateful for being able to do XYZ. Look at me. I just learned how to do XYZ for the first time, and look at how far along I've come in this process. I think that's the most important thing, because when you're looking out into the future, you're seeing everything that hasn't been done. Are you also looking back into the past to see where you started from and how far you've come along? Let's not lose sight of that, because it's so easy to go into lack mentality and to future casting and just thinking about what isn't here yet or what's not enough of yet. And yet there's so much that you wanted that you already achieved. There's so much that you wanted to create, so much that you wanted to do, so much that you wanted to learn, so much that you wanted to have that you already have in this present moment. And you started from there to get to here. And now you're here trying to get to there. But can you look and measure where you've been and where you are now? And my final lesson is to just be okay with letting life and goals be disrupted. This kind of goes back to expectations, but I'm really trying to embody just being in the here and the now, in the present, and being okay with the challenges and the frustrations and the downs as much as the ups and the highs and the excitement. I think that's just the biggest lesson. If you're not enjoying the journey that you're on to get to your destination, how are you really going to enjoy your destination? What's the point of it? So this really requires a level of detachment. I'm here to do the best that I can. I'm here to hold the vision that I have. I'm here to just see what's here for me. Even the ups and the downs and the highs and the lows, all of it. Even the perfection and the imperfection, even the wins and the losses. I'm just here for all of it. And I think when we can look at life through this lens, then that's when you become unstoppable. You become unfazed. You don't let one thing, one negative encounter, one negative conversation, one negative situation just derail you and ruin your entire day. And look, it's okay if that does, because we are human. But how long do we sit in it? And where do we go from here? That's the question. How long does it take you to respond versus to immediately react? And how do you get back into equilibrium? Okay, well, that was a longer episode than I expected. I want to share what's next for me and Cultivate. So we're moving August 3rd into the new house, and I'm just really excited to make it my own. I haven't even started to look at office furniture, office decor, but my office is going to be so large. I'm so excited. I think it's a 12 by 12 room, and I'm really happy to just have a dedicated YouTube and podcasting corner in that room, because I plan on coming back to YouTube. And I've already been doing podcasting, but I don't know if you can see my setup. I'm stacking a microphone on top of a stack of books, on top of a side table. And I don't know, it's just really janky. So I'm excited to finally feel like there's a sense of permanency, and it makes sense to invest in equipment and furniture and all of that good stuff. My YouTube journey is probably going to be more about life coaching topics moving forth. I feel like we uncover so much on these podcasts, but I also know a lot of people like to consume like just the quick, the concise, like tell me the main points, like the 4 tips to blah, 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 blah. And so just get to the point, Emily. So that'll be the YouTube version. I do also want to share that we are going through a complete rebrand. I hired a brand identity design expert named Marielle, and she completely crushed it. I'm just so excited to unveil the new website and the new colors. That'll probably come sometime in September or October. I'm not really attached to a deadline at this point, but I know it'll be sometime in Q4 of this year. And with that, we are also going to be working on a new life coaching offering. So many of you are high achievers that really struggle with burnout or feeling joy and cultivating happiness and resilience. And so it's going to be a very holistic mind, body, and soul program. I'm still working out the details of it and really coming up with the framework and the methodology, but it's going to be inspired by a lot of my life coaching clients and the challenges that they're going through in pursuit of a better job, a better life, really going after their goals and their dreams. And our new Slack community, it's free. It's called Cultivate Your Joyful Life. I'll link it in the show notes, is up and running. And I already see about 60 of you in there. So glad that you have joined us. And I'm just starting to love the discussions that we have. Let me know, by the way, when you listen to this episode, go over to the Slack channel and let me know your thoughts on the episode. What did you learn? What did you take away? Do you have any stories about home renovating? What do you wish that you could have done differently? Anything and everything on your mind. It really is a safe community. We have so many different threads for various life topics. If you want to vent, if you want support, if you want advice, just share in there and buckle up because we're going to have different events and different themes going throughout the year. We're just getting started there. And I'm just so grateful that you were here. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening to my home renovating lessons. And I hope that one day you also get to renovate. It is so beautiful to be able to make a place feel like you and a representation of you and what's most important to you. I feel like design is something like fashion or design is something where everybody is so unique and has different preferences. So hopefully wherever space you're in, even if it's not permanent, like you're renting, you just get to make it your own and know that you can put things up on the walls. It's easy to patch up. And hopefully you're just in a place and an environment that uplifts you and that really inspires you. And if you're not, start putting some color, some artwork, some rugs, some pillows, something that can really elevate it. All right, that's the end of this episode. I'll see you next week and many blessings to you. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoyed it and you're not following me on social media already, come follow me and join the conversation on our latest post. I'm over at Cultivate, or you can visit our website, cultivate.com, and learn more. And don't forget to hit subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss another episode. I can't wait to connect with you again soon. Have a joyful day.